Hello, welcome to Non-Dual Christianity. Today's video will focus on the question, where is God? And his immanence, or presence with us. We'll look at some scriptures that support this idea that God is present, and some implications of this. To look at some scriptural evidence of God's presence, his immanence, we have verses like Colossians 1:15-17, some phrases from that, speaking of Christ. He is the image of the invisible God. All things have been created through him and for him. He's before all things, and in him all things hold together. Psalm 139, some phrases from that in the entire chapter. Even before there is a word on my tongue, behold, Lord, you know it all. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? Darkness and light are alike to you. Acts 17:27-28. This is Paul speaking, and in verse 28, he says, "For in him we live and move and exist." Or Hebrews 1:3, "He is the radiance of his glory and the exact representation of his nature, and upholds all things by the word of his power." Ephesians 4:6, "One God and Father of all, who is over all, and through all, and in all." All these speaking about holding together, God permeating all of creation, upholding creation. This is important because if we think of God as somehow absent from creation, or that the world of form, anything that exists around us could exist apart from God's presence, then we start to slip into much more of a deistic or even atheistic mentality, because we assume, kind of like a giant battery or a clock, that somehow the world of form can exist without this ground of being. But on what does it exist? On what does it run? Where does it get its infinite sort of power from? Without God's presence holding creation together moment by moment, all of creation, then how does creation exist? How does the world of form exist? The majority of religion believes in a partial immanence of God. So most religion would not say God is totally absent, because otherwise what would the point of religion be? The point of most religion is to try to get God to show up, to try to get God to give me something, to bless me. So if God is totally absent, it doesn't really make much sense to have a religion. This would be more along the lines of atheism. With a partial immanence, though, religious beliefs would be, okay, well, God is somewhat present. Maybe even he shows up once in a while, or he is partially present in himself. So sure, his ability to give rise to all of creation is always here, but his true full nature, such as love and active participation and blessing and grace and all these things that we would desire from God, well, that's only given once in a while. In both of those scenarios, whether you don't believe that God is fully present, or whether you believe that God is sure fully present, but not fully active, or part of his nature can be absent, then you tend to live in a very anxious type of way, because over and over you come against the question of, how can I get God to bless me? How can I get God to show up and to help me through suffering, through life? And the assumption that he's not here is very normal, because our default mode is with our ego personality, which we feel separate from other things in the created order. We feel suffering, we feel pain, and we assume that God is not present because those other things are present. But what if we're mistaken? What if God must be present because otherwise nothing would exist? And what if God is present in your very sense of self? So God is not somehow added to this sense of you, because anything that God can be added to, anything that can be found, or anything that can be lost, is not this true immanent presence of God holding all things together moment by moment. So anything that is always there, that is God's presence. Your very sense of self, what is always there? If you get very quiet and still, what you'll find is you have this deep sense of, I exist. So much of your thoughts and the stories and your personality, those change and those fluctuate. But the deep sense of existing, that's there. And the non-dual view would say, yes, that deepest part of you, which you can experience when you quiet yourself, still yourself, and go inside, that deepest part of you, that is the divine essence. That is your experience of the divine nature. Because at the end of the day, given God's transcendence and beyondness, God cannot be known with thoughts in the mind. Those can only give approximations. God, your own presence, your essence, is known by participating in that, by experiencing what that deepest part of you is. That is where the immanence of God is encountered, and that is where God is. He is present in your very essence, your very sense of self. The divine essence is the essence, the presence, giving rise to all that exists. Thank you for exploring with me today.